I think being curious, being someone who values learning, being a life learner, I think that is what we are sometimes missing today as we think about college, as we think about higher education. The career element, of course, is of the utmost importance, but so
Hmm.
is um, being there to ingest all the other components because you're not just learning your particular subject matter, but you're learning about yourself and about your culture, about history, and about other people's as well.
It's
Phil,
also
every time we
interesting.
record, I feel like you're in a different part of the house.
I am. I go all over this house looking for like the best lighting because my office is still a mess. So today
Phil is like a cat. He's just like, "Where's the sun today?"
we're in my mom's room. It's very boho. It's very relaxing. I love that lamp behind me. It's a good time in
Love
here.
the
Good vibe.
energy. Love the energy, Phil.
Speaking of moms. When I was younger, what my mom did? And my dad used to say, don't say that about my baby. She was like, yo, you're going to boarding school. Like, what? And I always, I want to tell people this is not boarding school in the sense of like military school, you're in trouble. This is like, hey, there's a nutritionist. We have several field houses. You have personal trainers. You go to your little class around the
Nice
Harkness
little
table.
setup.
There's a
Yo, that
nice little
sounds like
setup. It's,
legit.
a little Gossip Girl esque situation in
Can I get
Central
a
Jersey.
can I get a boarding school now? Can we? We're
Listen,
trying to
let's
sign
do
up for that.
a post grad year, PG year,
You know what I
man. You
mean?
come in, we're a
Hey,
little seasoned,
I saw that adult summer camps are a thing this past summer.
Oh, yes,
down for
that
that.
has to be on the list.
I went
Maybe
to
Topic
next
for
summer
time.
another
camp.
day.
It wasn't that cool. It was like smart camp. So it was like trying to get some college credits. We were all super nerdy, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be like Mariah Carey's "Always Be My Baby," fall in love in the
Nope.
summer. Nah, man,
No.
I
nah.
never did summer camp. My summer camp was getting shipped off to the Dominican Republic and loving it. It was truly great. Hell yeah, it was great. Like I was out there, and it was just such a different experience than being in, the Bronx in Manhattan. But yeah,
Mom
highly
sent me a
recommend.
wife. She said, you're going to boarding school. And guess what happened? Sure enough,
You went to boarding.
graduated eighth grade. My behind went to boarding school, but I was happy. I did it by choice. But it's got me thinking, what in the world am I going to do with my own child? Different day and age. Hansel, I know you brought it up, but a few weeks ago, like you're starting to do college tours. What's good?
Oof.
Yeah. So that's been all right. So this has been where we have been now.
He
So
said
much
he
so
needed a
that
minute.
listen, you know, and I take that deep breath because what has been happening is a lot of internal struggle for me.
Okay.
I was
Tell us
one of
about
the
that
first, if not
struggle.
the first, to go to college in my family. I for me, right, and I know that's not the case for everybody. College did what it was supposed to do, right? It was able to get me out of my socioeconomic, status to, or at least kind of raise my socioeconomic status, get me a better career, was able to kind of move out and kind of progress, right? Did a little bit better than my parents did. But I know that's not the case for everybody. And I know that specifically now with how the current just educational climate is, with AI, that may not be the case for my kids, our kids. So the conversation that I've been having specifically with my oldest one is he wants to go into a career of the arts. And I'm like, that is one of the many fields that is probably going to be the most impacted, right? He wants to be an animator, an animation. And, one of the conversations that I'm trying to have with him and at the same time with myself is not trying to discourage a passion, but trying to figure out, do you how first of all, distinguishing between a passion and a career. They don't have to be the same thing, right? You could have a
Yeah.
career and still have a passion. And if you choose to make your passion a career in a situation where you have AI, how do you set yourself up for success? So literally some of the conversations, and I don't have the answers, that we've been having, which is part of the college tour to bring it back, is that I was looking and kind of, we took our oldest to check out actually a local school, Miami-Dade County College, and they have a very amazing animation program. They have, affiliations with like Nickelodeon and WB and stuff like that, where they get to create pilot shows
Mhm.
and stuff like that for them, which is amazing. But what I liked specifically was that it was dedicated to animation and it was a 2 years associate. There was accredited, so then afterwards you can take those credits and go to any major university and continue to a bachelor's. But what I'm thinking is, do I give him the option of flexibility? Now, 2 years from now, he
Yeah.
graduates high school, 2 year program in animation. Not only does he have the ability to go straight to work in animation, again, without having to get any additional debt or schooling, but if he sees that the field evolves past,
Pivot.
what things currently are, can he pivot and then get that bachelor's in a field that complements, what he wants to do, without having to fully commit, into a 4 year liberal arts or, arts degree that may put him in a precarious situations, in the future, right? So like trying to think that through has been a little kind of mind-boggling, I guess.
I mean,
And
look, I like that optionality of the associates too, because if you think about it, it's also a way to kind of pressure test the assumption he has. It's like, yeah,
Hmm.
you want this career,
this.
you want
Yep.
to do this based on your exposure to it and what you think you like.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like 2 years of deep work starting to learn that kind of path that can either, because I mean, I'm pretty sure I know it was the same for you too, but my first 2 years of college definitely made me be like, what I came in here for, I don't know if that's the path I'm
If
coming
that if
out.
that's it, right?
But
Yeah,
I love this because Hansel, my first 2 years of college were very pointed. So, unlike with the program that I was in, you don't really have a lot of general studies classes. It's like once you apply to this program, like that is your life. You are
you
in
dive
there.
in.
You dive in. This is what you're studying. This is what this looks like in practice.
And for the crowd, you were in the hotel school, so it's
I was in a
very
hotel.
hospitality. That business, everything from restaurant to hotels, but like really in that service industry space.
Correct. I mean, half those jokers went on to banking. A
That's
couple of
crazy.
doctors squeezed out there, so a ton of lawyers. But in terms of, I feel like we always say that they trimmed away a lot of the fat that you sometimes get when you are going in for a 4 year degree. And we're like, look, here's the meat, here's the potatoes, you're going to eat this. Get to your junior year, get to your senior year, figure out what's going to work for you. It doesn't have to be this bad, but look, we're going to trim out some of that stuff you don't need. You need to come to us prepared for that. But it got me thinking, like some people need a little bit more time. I need that extra 2 years to kind of figure out, okay, where am I going to land? I thought I wanted to do this, but maybe that's not, the look for me. So I applaud you, for giving at least that option, that thought, because I didn't have it. We're so like you. It was like you're going to college. There's three options in my family, really. You're going to college, you're joining the military and then going to college, or you're picking up a trade and then probably still going to college. There
Right, because you
was
still need a
no
So
certification
it's
for that trade.
all college.
right. At some point, you have to further that education, and it's because for many years, it's like one of the few things you can't take away. I can't. You graduated, you did what you need to do. Like that's yours. You owned it. Figure out what you want to do with it. Um, but sorry, you just got me thinking because Jazz and I recently had this whole conversation about, M. Like, Jazz is like, no, she's going to school. There is no, you know, junior college option. We're not doing any of that. It's 4 years. And it was because of her experience initially. She had great grades when she was in high school, did quite well, student athlete, but didn't have necessarily the push. And she said, I kind of just like floundered the first couple years there, where if I had more support, I probably would have, maybe become a nurse sooner or maybe become, maybe gone into medicine as a doctor, opposed to, figuring out, those steps later in my life. And so there's some concern, I think, from her around like, I don't want my child to make the same mistakes that I did, going into it. So it's
I
rough.
mean, and Lo, so I know that we've talked about college in a meaningful way just because even just the financial aspect, right? How much does the finance, impact or should you let impact, right? So, and I know you shared earlier this year. He was like, that's one thing that you wanted to make sure that whether it be, your own kid or any, kid in your orbit, right? Our kids or, cousins and stuff like that, that you communicated to not let themselves be limited by the financial aspect of it. So like, what was the thing that kind of changed that for you?
Yeah, I mean, from me, the perspective of I know many people in my life that made, you know, their like college choices purely a financial decision. And it was like, hey, I mean, hell, I'll throw myself on the spot. Hansel was like, dude, come to Cornell. And I was like, absolutely not. Because I don't know how I would pay for that. Like, not happening. Um, so I didn't even apply. And I probably would have applied and I probably would have had some help. Maybe I would have taken out some loans, but like it shouldn't have been, that shouldn't have been the deciding factor. That shouldn't have been the reason why I did it. And I know other people that have similar things. Like, they applied to one or two schools only that were like city and state schools because they didn't want to, or they expected to not to be able to afford an education. And I think that it can be a whole, you know, different conversation, but the education element is incredibly important, and no one should be limiting themselves or their education potential due to finances. That's kind of how I think about it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the schools do a good enough job until you're there, because I
Hmm.
feel like, Hans, I think we can probably speak to this. I feel like Cornell will tell you it doesn't we don't care. If you are supposed to be here, then you're supposed to be here. We will figure out the rest. Whether it's loan, whether it's scholarship, whether it's a program, there is money out there for you. So like if you are about it, and I feel bad because I hear stories like that. Russo was like, I didn't think I could afford it. And it's like once you go to some of these institutions like this, they're like, oh
Hmm.
no, we
We
got
got
you.
you.
But I think I have 2 points on that, right? The first is I 100% agree that because one, you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
I ended up going to Cornell and graduating with a total of $18,000 in loan after 4 years. And the reason for that was because I think after my freshman year, or like after the first semester of my, or something like that, I think sometime my freshman year, randomly, policy change. There was a policy change where now Cornell was going to be covering, students who came from underprivileged backgrounds, and they were going to, make you whole. I don't know, whatever I don't remember the details, but all of a sudden, like, I find myself in a situation where, yeah, I was taking some minimal federal loans, but then the rest, it was being covered by the university. Great, right? Like, I didn't know that. I got lucky, right? But you don't know what you don't know. On the flip side, then you also have to be able to make. I'm a big believer that I avoid regret, because when I look at a decision, I like to say, I'm going to make the best decision that I can with the information I have right now, because I don't know what I don't know. So as a parent now, I'm looking around, I'm like, well, could things change? Yes, but do I want my kid to take on unnecessary debt for a field that may or may not be viable, that may or may not be, existent, may or may not require the same skills that he's being taught today at the time that he crosses. Look, and that goes, and again, it's almost like a fool's errand to a degree, because I was literally listening to the Daily the other day where they talked about this whole past generation, my little cousin being one of them, where they're like, hey, computer science, computer science, computer science. And now they're graduating and there's no computer science jobs, because guess what? A lot of the entry level jobs are through AI. So it's like, okay, well, great. Now what? So I don't know. It's like trying to predict the future to a degree. So like, you just got to be able to do the best you can and try to figure it out. But it's tough. It really is, as a
You see,
parent.
and that's where I think that our background comes through, because we shouldn't be going to a university institution trying to predict the future. We should be
Hmm.
going to these institutions to learn, to
Hmm.
expand our knowledge, to grow ourselves as individuals, to become better human
Multifaceted, yeah.
beings. Like, yes, we should be preparing for a career, we should be learning, we should be growing in certain fields, but ultimately, like, I think that the value of an institution are the ideas that you're getting exposed to, are the people that you're meeting, the network that you're building, the fact that you have a moment in time to just think, Ideally, I mean, we don't have to get into what we all do, but because nope, never mind. That, but
But you hit the nail on the head. I think it is a moment in time that once you start working and once you're in the workforce, you don't get. I think about some of the most impactful classes and experiences were not necessarily in my major.
yeah.
It was, I'm gonna go ahead and take this elective over here because I need it, but also I'm kind of interested in this, and I don't know
Hmm.
when I'm ever gonna have another time to be in a setting with experts, not just
Yeah.
someone who, like, kind of knows about this, but like, oh, you wrote this textbook and it's
Yeah.
used at all of these places across the country, and that's huge to have, that freedom to do that. Shoot, Russo, I wouldn't have met you if I wasn't open to being in. It's always a funny story because I met Carlos. We met each other, then had to re-meet each other later.
Hmm.
But being in a space where you're like, hey, you want to learn about, spirituality, you want to learn about Santeria, you want to learn about these things, and be like, oh, I'm gonna go over to this session and see what this is about.
Hmm.
I think being curious, being someone who values learning, being a life learner, I think that is what we are sometimes missing today as we think about college, as we think about higher education. The career element, of course, is of the utmost importance, but so
Hmm.
is being there to ingest all the other components because you're not just learning your particular subject matter, but you're learning about yourself and about your culture and about history and about other people's as well.
You should
Well,
be.
Should
right, you
be
should be.
correct.
Which reminds me, actually, and Lois, I want you to kind of talk about it a little bit. It reminds me then taking a step even further, right? Because we started talking about college because I'm in that stage, right? But you guys are a different stage of dealing with schooling, right? Because of obviously the ages. But you shared a podcast with us about this institution called the Alpha School, who's trying to change just even the structure of how they do education, right? The whole idea of going to these institutions is to kind of become well-rounded, push ourselves across multiple disciplines. Should we wait until college for that, right? Like, so I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because I thought that was pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating concept, and it's something that we're struggling with, obviously, just because we're like, oh crap, she's gonna start her education
Mm.
journey, and like, what do we want that? And the sooner you start, the better, by many arguments. Before I jump the gun, though, I do want to kind of step slightly back to Phil's point and also to Hansel's point, because the three of us now, not to date ourselves, but each of us has at least 15 plus years in the game career wise at this point. And I can confidently say, and I'm pretty sure you two would as well, I've learned everything I needed to learn on the job. So there was no need to future proof my university
That's true.
trajectory, because any job I've learned, not only have I had to learn on the fly, every company does things differently. Every industry does things differently. And like, you're inherently, whenever you do a transition, having to fucking relearn it all anyway
Absolutely.
and like figure out how they do it there. And I mean, Hansel, you're brand new in a fresh role. Like, I'm sure you're going through it now. You're like, oh man, what's happening?
Listen,
It's that
and to
critical
that point,
thinking. Yeah. Okay.
What Phil's saying is like some of the learnings came from like the peripheral electives and stuff like that. Like, while I think when I look back at my college career, there's a one class that yes, it was part of my major, but it was not even a kind of like econ or finance class that left the biggest impact. It was a emerging markets kind of case analysis class. And I think it was impactful because I took a similar type of class probably my freshman year, and then I took this class my senior year. And not only was I able to see the way my thinking had changed, which is attributed to my experience as a whole, not any one class, but then that specific class, the whole idea was to be able to analyze the problem holistically, strategically. Was it economic
Hmm.
factors? Was it,
Yep.
the change in consumer behavior, and be able to analyze a specific case and put a solution together? And that to me was so impactful because all of a sudden I'm applying all these different experiences, everything from the clubs I was in to, interdisciplinary studies like in, Hispanic and Latino studies, and kind of really combining all these different things to analyze a business case. To me, that was the most impactful class that I took.
What
So
you were
again, it
thinking?
wasn't even an econ 101.
You're
It wasn't a
thinking
finance.
All jokes
or
aside, but
trying
you
to.
were thinking, critically
Yeah, yeah,
thinking,
yeah,
how
yeah.
does all this
Correct. Critical thinking.
tie together? Is intersectional? Why does this matter here? Oh, okay, I'm putting this aside. I'm putting this all together. Oh, okay, I'm starting to get how things work. Russo, I don't want to lose your other thought because, like, Hansel, you thinking? I feel you. I had a moment too where it's like, oh, this is finally
This
clicking.
Like I
clicks.
learned something. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Hmm.
oh shoot, I
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
learned
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
something.
I get it. Look, and I mean, I went into school gun ho on finance, and the first psych class I took is where that trigger happened for me, where I was just
Nice.
like, oh, this is actually interesting. This is fascinating. And I'm like zeroed in, immediately clocked in. But yeah, to go back, speaking of the critically thinking piece, and I'll bring it back to Alpha School, we recently did, because again, what is time? And this all moves so fast. But we started touring schools. So we toured a preschool and then a Montessori school in preparation of, cool, what are we going to do? Where are we going to send you? She needs to go somewhere. Just simply because the social element, but also the like structure and the education component, she's incredibly sharp. And we can read books to her all day, but we're starting to think like, oh, are we putting you at a detriment? Like you clearly have more to grow and you have the potential. So we were like, let's see what we have. We toured a Montessori school, which after touring, is it really?
but
We know
no,
the philosophies pretty well given our research, and
my own
there were
wooden toys.
multiple things wrong in this institution. So do the tours. All the new parents out there that are about to enter into the world, if I have a piece of advice, do the tours, come with questions, and like be prepared. Don't let names fool you. I'll just leave it at that. So that school is not it. And then the preschool though, phenomenal, like amazing. The director was amazing. A was immediately comfortable. And on the heels of both of these visits, I heard this podcast. Actually, I started listening to Hard Fork because of Hansel's recommendation, and it just so happened that an episode of Hard Fork.
Yep, yep.
Okay, I was like, wait, that's not what it's called.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, no. You're on,
An
you're on.
episode of Hard Fork highlighted alpha schools, and then I heard a separate episode from NPR's Up First that talked about it as well. And then there was a CBS video on YouTube that talked about it. So like
And he's like, yo,
clearly
what's going on?
there's a
Right, right,
PR
right.
push happening and everyone's interested. But of course, because it's an AI first school, all this stuff. I am going to reserve any critique because I have not dived in. I don't know the curriculum. I don't know what's happening, but it's a fascinating concept. And it made us pause and think, okay, there's a lot of good here, and clearly it's a very privileged situation because if I remember, it's a $40,000 a year school, and I'm talking about school like K through 12. Like I'm not speaking about a university right now. So, Phil, hold on,
I'm gonna bring it
hold
in.
your hold your horses. I see you
He's
jumping out
ready.
of your seat over there, administrator, former administrator. Please wait your turn. I will see sometime in a moment. Um, but yeah, so like it's a fascinating concept. Essentially, there are no teachers, there are guides. So I have a slight issue with that because I'm like, you should have some kind of credential, I think, to be in a room guiding young adults. So
Children,
that's
period.
A, you know, and they're trying to cram, not trying, they are seemingly succeeding at focusing, I think it was 2 hours of the day, leveraging AI tools. The founder keeps saying Gen AI. I'm not entirely sure it's actually Gen AI, but that's neither here nor there. We're not the experts. But they're using AI to kind of help the students learn at their pace and kind of supercharge the school's learning. And then outside of that, the rest of the day is dedicated to like life skills, thinking about businesses, thinking about all these other things that can help them become functioning adults, which in theory, concept sounds great. It's something that we would definitely at least consider. I like it because then using the AI components, it allows you to learn at your pace and kind of fall down interesting rabbit holes. Like I think it would be a phenomenal way to inspire that curiosity that a lot of times, even in my own experience, was diminished in school,
Okay.
especially in K through 12. So I think that that's great. The issue is, do I think AI is fully there yet? Do I think we have the expertise in it to properly, like, we have issues with AI in adults. Now think about it for kids. Like, that's where my issue is. And if you have non experts guiding these people on a day to day basis, like, how are you then properly enabling them to know, you know, trust but verify? Don't just take this stuff at face value. Like, that's where my issue comes in with the whole AI in school component. Don't just like, are we teaching kids how to engage with it properly? Are we letting them know, hey, same way that, because I think we did a piss poor job of this historically, like, you should challenge your teachers. You should be able to be like, but wait, why? And like go further and go further. Or are kids going to be primed to like, this is technology, this is AI, you have access to the internet, so you know everything. Not being able to understand the nuance that not everything on the internet is factual or accurate or all that
Think
stuff. So like it's an interesting concept. I think it's great, but I have a lot of reservations about it.
I
So,
think we
so
need to
Phil,
do a
hit
better
me.
job of
What,
getting
what,
to
what you
them
got in your head on
sooner.
that?
Hold
No,
on.
I'm saying
Wait, what?
what?
No, I was like, Phil, hit me. What was it that you wanted to jump in on the cost
No,
and the
I
situation?
I think that I think you ended up going there, Russo, which is like, how do we trust the content that we are receiving is accurate? Also, the founder, I haven't had a chance to dig into it as much. Like, does the founder come from an like education background? Like, is this, have they studied? I mean, there are people who have devoted their entire lives to education and figuring out what solutions work best, what doesn't work for students, how can we improve this? And like AI, I don't think is going anywhere, but I also don't trust it to blindly, and especially not for 40 grand. For 40 grand, like, yeah, I went to middle school for about 40 grand. I'd much rather go deal with an old mean teacher, at least with proven methods in a very healthy environment where I did visit, where we did do the work, than just blindly going, hey, here's this new tech, it'll work.
So here's what I'll say, and I'm gonna plug in something right now. So the NPR piece that I listened to was phenomenal because they touch on a lot of stuff and they challenged the founder a bit too, and they did reporting. So the plug is, given everything going on, especially on a federal level here in the US, if you are in the US or maybe anywhere and you have the means, support NPR, support your local stations. Journalism is vitally important, especially in these times. Now, to that point, I'm not going to speak of the founder because I didn't do a deep dive. I don't know her exact credentials. I know she was a frustrated mom because her kid was not getting taught well and then founded this. And that was kind of the pitch that I first heard. But the NPR reporting highlighted that it's actually a subsidiary of Trilogy Education or Trilogy Technology or something, but they're an ed tech company. So there's then questionable ethics about, cool, so how involved are they? What's their end goal here? What's their plan? What are they trying to like convey? I think they're a K through 12 ed tech company that have like learning software and all this other stuff. So Phil, to your point about that, who's behind this? What's the impetus of it? What's the purpose of
I'm
it? There's a lot of questions.
always question. It's the one time I get a little bit, tinfoil hatty, which is, what does this private company stand to gain from this?
Hmm.
And they make amazing training programs, but are you training our babies to be great workers? Are you training them to think critically? Like, what's the ultimate goal here? And that mom, I'm like, you founded this, but like, did we talk about IEPs? Did we talk about an education plan for your child? What does your community look like? Maybe you don't have that support. I think there's so many other questions to ask. We went through it when we were looking for a school with M. We got to a similar point. So it's like, hey, we've given you all that we can give you. You need to socialize with other kids, good, bad, or indifferent. We need to get you out there because
Yeah.
that is what the world is going to look like. And it's been good for her in that sense. Some things you say, you're like, oh, where did you get that from? Don't bring that in our house. And other things, like, it's great. But sorry, Hans, I see you coming there, but I'm like, and also the cost. That's another thing we're not mentioning. It's a cost for us to send her to this school, not 40. Not
Wait a
40,
minute.
but um,
It's
I
close.
it's close. I think there's something to be said. I don't think I would never write this off. I am more of the hey, we also need to teach kids sooner about the nuance that's in AI. It's not going anywhere. I just don't want you to be 13 years of age thinking that what you're seeing here is universal truth when it's not.
So what I want to jump in is I want to play devil's advocate on this piece, mainly because a couple of things, right? So again, not I didn't do a massive amount of research, but so some of the insights that I do know from the Alpha School was that they are working on rolling out free or reduced cost, schools to serve different types of neighborhoods, which is great, right? And I think it's also important to kind of to acknowledge that I know the term AI gets used pretty liberally, right? But AI has already been part of education for a long time. If you look at tools like iReady, which my kids have used their entire elementary school career, it's just using predictive analysis to then say, okay, if you get these questions wrong, I'm going to reserve these other questions. And it's not, to your point, Carlos. I don't know if it's if their system is truly generative AI. It may be more sophisticated and more improved. It may leverage some generative audio, but I'm sure that at its base level, what it's trying to provide is more individualized learning programs, which at
Hmm.
that point, again, it's not like it's, again, I haven't seen it myself, but I doubt that it's like literally writing new text and new problems as it goes. It's more of analyzing the response and helping provide some
Hmm.
generative support when they
Yeah.
need to answer a question. With that said, I think that what I'm hearing is that we could all agree that there needs to be, especially as things, in our society continue to change, whether it be through technology or otherwise, a need for us to be a little bit more socially connected and teach our kids to be socially connected
Hmm.
and some type of change in the current educational system. I think that the issue is while you may find some younger schooling, pre-K and stuff like that, where they provide a level of, let's call it, innovation in the format, ultimately you funnel back into the standard way of teaching, which I would argue it also doesn't necessarily do a good job to provide an innovative system to kind of build people who are going to be more focused on critical thinking, because you're teaching to the
Hmm.
curriculum, you're teaching to the test, to the federal requirement. Regardless, no matter where you start, if you follow the public school, and for that matter even charter school system, you end up kind of regressing to a specific mean of way that we manage schooling. So like, to me, I know that the alpha school has its potential kind of red flags, but I'd rather, if we could have more alpha schools that are accessible, I'm for it, because at least we're testing and trying to do something new, which I think is the argument that some parents make when they decide to do the homeschooling route.
Hmm.
But I just think that, especially with technology like AI, if we are not ingraining that critical thinking earlier, especially before they start already engaging with their friends on their phones and tablets and already jump into a super digitally connected world, it becomes harder to do so down the line, you know?
And so you hit at something super important, and I want to call this out as someone who has worked in the charter system, in a charter network, gone to public school, but also gone to a traditional private school. Your charters and public schools technically should be teaching to the same information because charter schools are public schools, just
Hmm.
operationally where they're in a different space. Um, I'm going to say this. And some people might not like it, but I would say what it kind of comes down to is money and access.
It really
My
does.
Yeah.
experience in a
Yeah.
wealthy private school, like you are taught to think critically. You
Mm-hmm.
are not sitting in a class with 40 other students. You are not worried about books. You're not worried about the same things in that space. You're thinking, oh, we're going to have this experiential learning experience and I'm going to do stocks and snacks on Friday and we're going to program Lego on Tuesday. And then, oh, don't forget my music class that's taking place during the day to do. Like, you're getting that in those spaces. What I'm hoping things like Alvo, what I'm hoping machine learning, AI, all these things can do is maybe level the playing field. And I think that's what the bigger ask is like, can we not think about the 40K? Like, is there any way that we can make this equitable for all these parties? Because we all
Mm-hmm.
benefit from it. But you definitely got me thinking, about it. I like once again haven't done a deep dive into them. They have some really bright people that work for the company. This is not a promotion for them or an ad. But I think all of us a little bit, we are skeptics at times, and like we want to ask those questions. How does this work? What does this actually mean for the greater good? Back to my original point. For me, it always comes down to it is a financial thing. Not better prepared school districts, you're just not having the same conversations. How you're educated is just different. Therein lies the problem.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the equitable point is kind of the main ticket on my side, because if we are truly going to champion this and going to say, hey, this is the way forward, this is what the future, this is where we're heading, all right, so is it going to be the same thing that it has always been, which means that those that have access and those that don't get left behind? That makes me feel like this is less the future and less the way to go forward. I also feel like I'm all for, again, in theory, and the concept I think is great. But one last point that I'll mention is how in the reporting they identified that the second half of that school day, where they're thinking about their life professionally and careers and businesses and what they're going to do, and they're coached on creating businesses and starting businesses. All of the businesses that are being started are AI first and AI focused. And I think that that's telling of the kind of environment that they're in and the kind of guidance that they're getting. Because yes, it's going to be a big component of the future, and that's what we should be learning, and we shouldn't want anyone getting left behind about it. But not everything has to be AI first. Not everything has to be AI focused. And I think that similar to kind of how our schooling, gently or ungently kind of shoehorned us into having a specific path in mind, or having a specific what the success looked like for us view of the world. What are we doing to this next generation? And can we try to not do the same thing again? Can we try to not repeat those kinds of things? Those are the kind of questions that I'm asking from a education perspective for our kids.
So then, big picture. Are you did these school tours? What are you leaning to? Like, and not necessarily like what schools, right? But like, where's your head at specifically as far as selection criteria right now, right? Like, and have you thought anything else above just, let's call it, pre-K, right? Or you just right now not even, you haven't even gotten there.
Yeah, so I mean, we're thinking
Can
about
I,
pre-K just because that's what's on the horizon. Oh, go for it.
one more thing for you though. There's also financial component, and there's
Oh, of course.
also a component related to paying it, but also your ability to do your job, your Monday through Friday. So I also want to throw that into the ring with Hansel's question of like how you making this decision.
Yeah, so from my perspective, I think that what we're looking at is where can we ensure she's in an environment that's going to challenge her and kind of allow her to, like, we're not looking for babysitters, like
Yep,
if
yep, yep.
that's what we needed or wanted, there are definitely more
You can have someone in home.
options. Yeah, exactly. Like
Right.
I'm
Right.
not looking for you to just babysit the kid. Um, so we're looking for somebody that has some kind of curriculum play in it. And there has to be enough of an awareness in the staff that you are not catering to every individual kid, but that there is consideration for the fact that multiple different kids will have multiple different needs. And you are allowing for that, even in the, because like the preschool we toured, even within the same classrooms, like they were considerate of that. And it was like, if kids are at a point where they can be challenged and they can do something that's above their age or above their group, they'll come over here and they'll do that with this teacher or this TA. Then the rest of the class or whoever else will go on this. And like that kind of consideration, I think, is important. So I think that's kind of the criteria that we're looking at is like, hey, do you have a curriculum? And also, are you looking to challenge these kids, or are you just looking to kind of babysit them 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 or whatever it is? And that then that brings into question, okay, well, is that what we want? That's from the right now element. From the future element, I think that we are open, and I'm not, again, super skeptical about things, and I try to have a balanced look at things. So I'm not saying something like alpha wouldn't be an option. I would just have a lot of questions about what's the curriculum like, what's the guidance like, what's the educational environment like. I would prefer her to not have the kind of K through 12 education I did. I mean, Rice was phenomenal, Hansel. I think it had a lot of positives, but I think you would agree with me that there was a lot of cons too.
Agreed, agreed.
Um, and that's kind of what my K through 12 was. It was like there was a sprinkling of like really dope things that I learned, and then there was a lot of like, oh, Jesus, that was questionable at best. So I think that there's a lot more conversations to have, and I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't pretend to, so I have no idea what the future holds, and we're fortunately a few years away, but also I know that comes right around the corner. But we'll see when that time comes to like make those decisions and start getting her into programs. It's like, cool, what's going to be available to us? Future thinking from our perspective, like if she wants to do college, we want to be able to provide that opportunity and that access. But we also don't believe that that's the end goal. Like we also don't believe that that's the end game. Like there are other paths, there are other ways for you to be challenged and grow and get an education. Like one thing I didn't get to do that I think would have been phenomenal is like take a leap year. Just take a year
Mhm.
off. You've done 12 years of schooling and then you jump right into another 4 years to start, depending on if you're going to do an advanced degree or not. Take some time off. Like
I tried
if
that.
we are able to provide her with the ability to just take a year off and not have any worry or concern, financially or security wise or any of that, I think we would have met our goal in terms of like education.
What
I
about you,
would say
Phil?
I am where you were, Russo. About 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. So much so that we've considered it's a big conversation right now moving back east. Why? Because I'd like to give her access to what I had access to, because it was, I think, compared to what I'm seeing, a much more fruitful experience in terms of like nurturing the individual. How can we give you the tools that you need, your little behind needs, in order to be the best version of yourself? So much so, like I said, we were like, do we need to move back east? And I think that's sort of what it's been like. Do we send it to your school? Can we get into your school? Shoot, what does it cost? I think we found a good home where we currently are, where there is a good curriculum, where there are teachers who I think are seeing the students for who they are and kind of keen on what they're bringing to the table. But we're already starting to think, okay, what does middle school look like? What does high school look like?
Hmm?
And although there's more than one path to sort of get to where you want to go career wise, I'm always a big proponent of let me give you the biggest leg up. I didn't go through what I went through. Your mom didn't, my grandparents, great grandparents, aunt and uncles, so that you would have to go through the same struggles. So no, I'm a firm
Hmm.
believer. Like, no, if I can make this easier for you, then hell yeah, I'm going to make this easier for you. And you want to go to the best school, well, then we're going to figure out a way to make that happen. I would say the most telling thing, Hansel, about being out here, I guess, in the West Coast, is, and I thought my wife was just joking about it until I met, talking to a physician, and she's from the East Coast, also went to Cornell undergrad, and she was like, we had trouble with school, just like finding a good school. And she's like, we had to supplement, and that's not a knock to California, but I think the approach is a little bit different. I think maybe we are just a little bit more aggressive on the East Coast, like, hey, we got to get in there. This has to be done. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But I don't think they have out here, which could be a good thing for your child, or it could be
Mhm.
a very bad thing depending on the type
What you're
of
trying
little
to impart,
person.
right?
That's
Yeah,
that's the catch 22 in all of this too, that it is very dependent on the child as well.
gotta know.
We can
Freeze
sit
time,
here and
right?
talk into our mics all we want, but
Yeah, but so
Why
listen,
my
that
mom said I need to go to boarding school. But yes, go ahead, Hansel.
no, I was gonna say just to kind of like my take has really been and now focus really just on the college just to bring it back because that's where a lot of the conversation has been. Although my communication is pretty consistent with the kids, which is they all have to go to college, and the reason why they have to go to college is that absent of a plan, education will, at least in my opinion, help you get there, right? The right education, right? Because, and I think this is where I end up, going back to the conundrum that I am with our oldest, which is absent of a plan, because you want to start your own business, because you want to go into trade school, because you want to explore something else that is non-traditional, then, you know, I don't think that not doing anything is an option, right? So, cool. If you have a plan and you want to just go in and go a non-traditional route because you have an idea that you want to pursue, amen. But that's going to be a specific type of kid, right? Because I think temperament has a lot to do with it. Absent of that, then yes, you have to go to school because ideally help guide them, but maybe you can join clubs, jump into that random elective, find a field like psychology until you get a plan. And if you want to drop out halfway through because all of a sudden you have that spark or you met that friend who's going to help you start a business, amen, right? But like I think that not having a plan is not acceptable. So absent of any other plan, school is, going to college is the bare minimum that you have to do. The second thing that I've always told them since young is that you got to move out. You got to move out. You got to go to college. I don't. You got to go. Like you can't stay here, right? Like, and that's not like to be mean. Listen, I'll tell them. They know. They know how it
oh
is, and it's
man,
because I truly do believe that there's a level of growing up. It doesn't mean you can't come back,
Very
but you
true.
at least have to try to leave. Even if you don't
Yes,
go to college and you try to, hey, look, I want to, I don't know, go into a trade school because I want to start my own business doing X. Cool, but
your
like
apartment.
how do we help you plan out an exit strategy? Because you can't truly, I believe that you can't truly just grow up and learn, how the world works, especially if you're trying to start a business, if you can't even manage your own life on your own, right? So like there is an element of like, you have to have a plan. If you don't have one, college is going to be your default. And you have to find a exit strategy. You can always come back. You can always, whatever you need, but you at least have to make that attempt of leaving the nest for however short of a period, so that you can see what the world is like, and it kind of provides a different point of view. So like that's where where I've netted out. And then the last thing I'll say that is, that's the oldest. The middle one wants to go to college, but he wants to go and find a program that allows him to study in Japan, which I love that because even regardless of, let's say, the field of study, I can not justify, but make the argument that regardless of what he's studying, that experience of being a year, 2 years abroad, or however long, and that experience will be value added and will provide that critical thinking flexibility because now you expose yourself to different cultures, different way of thinking, regardless of the field, and there's additional value there versus saying, hey, I'm gonna just go to college and get a degree that maybe either A, I'm not necessarily passionate about, or it's just something to do and there's no extra value added there. So it's just, to Carl's point, it depends on the child and really be able to kind of provide some just general guardrails for them.
Hansel, you brought tears to my eye. There's nothing like I think being some kids, like you said, that temperament is super important. Some kids need to have that experience to be out. I'm not going to swim unless you push me in the pool. I need to know to wake myself up at this time because I'm responsible for my person now. Um, and like I said, Risa, to your earlier point, it's like knowing that kid. What is going to work best for your child? Because what works for me did not work for my brother, did not work for my sister. Um, and, our parents had to have that forethought to go, okay, plan for you, plan for you, plan for you. Overall, you're going to do something, but
Correct.
we'll give, we'll pick our battles. We'll give you a little rope. You figure out which path is going to work best for you. So I'm with you there.
So
I think we
I'll
all
wrap
need to
this with,
give a.
one quick story. Sorry, go ahead, Los.
No, I was gonna say that we need to give all the kids a little rope and then see what happens.
Figure
Yeah.
that out.
I was gonna end with a little funny story, which was a couple years back, like literally, maybe our oldest, he's now 16, and I think he was what, maybe 14, maybe 13. And It was before we were in the house, we were in the apartment, and we're doing something, and like him and in the middle one, we're both like doing something in the room, and he goes, I think they were talking about how to decorate their room, and they're like, no, the oldest one was telling the middle one, like, no, you don't have to worry about that because soon I'm gonna have to move out anyway, so like you can have the space. And I'm like, bro, like, it's like, relax, like you have to move out, but you're good, my guy. You're not moving out anytime soon. Like you're set. But I just thought that was hilarious. It's like I've been telling them, just I rather them expect it, and even if it doesn't happen year one, and like obviously there's we're parents. We're just not going to be like, well, out the door, but
Hansel's out here
mentally prepared
stressing out
for
an
the challenge,
8-year-old.
right?
I know. It's like I gotta get a job, go to
True,
college.
that's funny.
Bro, can you just tie your shoes, okay? Just that's all I need you to do right now.
That's what I need you to focus on. Yeah, man. Well, we'll see what happens. Time will tell for sure, because I don't think any of us knows
College.
what the future has. But
Yeah,
the
man.
one
Well,
thing
this
I
is.
think the three of
I want
us
to hear from the
can
audience.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think the
Yeah.
three of us do agree on like the importance of education. And that's the
Yes.
sum of it all. Is like
Yeah, read. Please
read.
just
I
read.
think
Pick up a book.
it's less that we agree. It's less that we agree. Is more of like, how should it change? I don't think we have the answers, but I think that's the critical thinking and socializing is definitely needs to be brought up to the forefront at some point.
Yeah, and let us know. What are the conversations you're having at home? How do you think of this? How do you view this? People with multiple kids, what are you doing? Because
I would
that's
love to hear
also
too
another.
if any of our listeners are teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
We'd
would
love
be
to
a
hear that.
fascinating take. What's the change on your side? How are you seeing it? Because not easy by any means, and my
I
intention
don't
wasn't
envy
to
y'all.
minimize it.
Tough job.
I couldn't do
Tried. I lost 30 pounds. I'm like, nah, never going back. Mm-mm.
it.
No,
Well,
I love the kids. Love the kids. But mm-mm.
Alrighty, folks. Until next time, deuces.